the Poetry Center, bringing poetry to Paterson since 1980 at Passaic County Community College.
Anyway, I'm very happy to see you here today. I'm very happy to see the sun. I'm so sick of the rain. I know plants need rain, but do they need this much rain? I have mushrooms all over my lawn. They're really happy. Anyway, before I actually start, I want to thank Sheldrake Lucas, who provided the food today. It was really a wonderful thing for him to do. Isn't he great? And he's a wonderful chef. The food was amazing, and it's a lovely thing for him to do, and a big pain in the neck for him to do. So that's one thing I wanted to say right away. I also want to say that if you look at the walls, I hope you'll have time to look at our art exhibits. My paintings are up on the wall, and so are Linda Hillinghouse's. Linda, stand up, please. I know she's so pushy. Can I get you to stand up, Linda? And stop hiding in the corner over here. Anyway, Linda's paintings are up and my paintings are up. I hope you'll take a few minutes at the end to go look at them. I'm going to call the names. I think that Linda Foster didn't make it here.
Oh, I'm here.
Where are you, darling? Oh, I didn't see you. We called your name before. Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad. Okay, Linda comes from Grand Rapids, Michigan. She won the first prize along with Carolyn Russell of the contest, which is not an easy thing to do because we have a lot of entries every year. I haven't looked at this year's yet. I'm trying to finish a couple of other contests before I look at the Allen Ginsberg Awards. So if you haven't already entered, you could enter. You could still enter. I know the deadline's passed, but that's all right. You can still enter if you want to. Just say Maria said so. So also I want to say that none of these programs would be possible without the support of the college, Passaic County Community College, and Dr. Stephen Rose, who's the president of the college, who's always been extremely supportive of the Poetry Center and of all the programs that we do, both for the Paterson community and also for the world, actually. We have contributors to the magazine from all over the world. We have people who enter the contest from all over the world. The YouTube channel goes up other places. I run a workshop every Thursday for 6 weeks at a time for mature adults. That's as long as you're not. That's a euphemism for what? I don't know. I think our youngest person at this point is 50. So, but anyway, I run a workshop which has been very popular and which has people from other countries as well as the United States and many other states. And I think that's a wonderful way to have, of course it's on Zoom, I'd rather have it in person, but it's been immensely successful. I've been so happy with it. The people are producing excellent, beautiful poems. They're getting to know one another. It's just been such a pleasure and such a joy for me in these coronavirus years to have that workshop to look forward to and to have such wonderful people in it and people who keep getting better and better all the time in their writing. Isn't that what we all want when we run a workshop or we're going to teach? We want people to just keep getting better and better. And that's what I think is happening there. Anyway, now I'm going to, I need to also thank Smita Desai, who is my secretary, who's constantly answering questions about the Poetry Center and about all our other programs. I couldn't manage without her. She is taking care of selling the books as well as putting them all out, and just takes care of everything in the most wonderful way imaginable. I'm really grateful for her, and you should be grateful to her too, because I couldn't really do the things she does. I can't do. And then the other person I'd like to thank, besides John Ming, I'd like to thank Sue Balick, who is the Director of Cultural Affairs and the Folklife Center, and the founder of the Folklife Center, actually. And she does such an excellent job. She is a person I've come to rely on for her efficiency, her intelligence, her ability to get things done, for all the things that she does to keep all these programs that I started when I was a lot younger going. Some of them I don't have quite enough energy to run 90 programs anymore. And when I started this, I was 40. You'd be surprised how young 40 is when you look at it from my vantage point. 40 seems really babyish at this point. Anyway, I didn't realize when I started it how much energy it all took. And Sue has taken to it like a fish to water. And I really want you to give her a round of applause, because she's been so fantastic. All right, now we're going to have, and don't forget, you can still enter. I haven't looked at the submissions yet, and they're still not divided up. We put numbers on them so that when the judges look at them, they don't see who it is. So we don't have a work study student, so poor Smita is trying to divide up the entries and put numbers on them and enter them in the book, so that we could go, once we get winners, we can go look up who they are. I'm so happy to see some names of people who've won before and some names of people who are new on this year's list. And all these poems will appear in the forthcoming issue of PLR. So the poems from this year will appear in the next issue of PLR. Anyway, today I'm going to ask Linda Nemec Foster. I'm so glad you made it. We called you before, you didn't answer, so we thought you weren't here. And I wouldn't blame you. Grand Rapids is a very long way away. And you're going to read, when we talk about the movie Casablanca, my father remembers every line. Isn't that a wonderful title for a poem? Let's give Linda a hand. Wonderful to see you, darling. Love you. Beautiful.
Thank you. Well, folks, here I am. And I wasn't late. Can everyone hear me? I wasn't late. And I did not know that I'd be number one. Usually you start with the honorable mentions first.
No, I always start with the first
Well,
one.
I've never won first prize. So now I know. Now I know what happens. So first of all, Maria is so gracious and generous, and she thanks everyone. But the biggest thank you is for Maria Mazziotti Gillen. Not only her talent as a poet, a teacher, an artist, but look at her generosity. Look at her graciousness that goes throughout the world. Maria, you're a gem. You know that.
So are you, darling.
She's the role model right here. She's the role model. So I'm going to read my poem. First of all, to let you know, it's about my father and his connection to not only the movie Casablanca, but the song, as time goes by, and the city of Casablanca, because during the war, he was a Navy guy in World War II. For part of the war, he was stationed there. He was in the city of Casablanca, which the Nazis occupied. And I talk about Rommel, known as the Desert Fox. He was a Nazi commander in Northern Africa, because Nazism was trying to take over the world at the time. Some people would say it still is. But at any rate, I talk about Cinderella Liberty. And that's a phrase used in the Navy when a sailor had shore leave. The Cinderella Liberty clause was you have to get back to the ship on that last day of shore leave. For instance, if you had to get back on Thursday, you had to get back on the ship by 11:59 p.m. or you got into trouble. So anyway, here's the poem, and it's a wonderful title, as Maria said, and it goes right into the first line of the poem. When we talk about the movie Casablanca, my father remembers every line. Of the song, that is, not the entire screenplay. You know, as time goes by, the iconic song that gave us Bogart and Bergman and the narrative of the world always welcoming lovers, as my father remembered it on my sister's back porch in a small suburb in northern Ohio. When he first saw the movie, he was far from the Midwest. My father, before he was my father, landed in New York City on Cinderella Liberty, a Navy guy in World War II. His ship, the USS Thomas Jefferson, had docked just down a ways from the Statue of Liberty. My dad always exaggerated. After plowing through the tough Atlantic waves, after plowing through the tougher North African campaign with Rommel and his desert rats, after spending several days in the real Casablanca, so says my father, and who am I to deny him anything at this point? He lands in New York City for the first time, and the first sweet taste of Cinderella Liberty on his lips. There he is, with his Navy swagger and thin smile. There he is, staring at the Radio City Music Hall's giant marquee with the giant letters Casablanca, Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, now playing. Hey, he says to anyone passing by, I was there. I was just there. Casablanca, the Casbah, the desert heat, the Mediterranean blue. His voice wanders in the early evening dusk as he walks into the theater. He takes a seat in the encroaching dark and becomes totally mesmerized by the love story, by the intrigue, by Bogart's smoldering cigarette and Bergman's misting eyes. We'll always have Paris. Here's looking at you, kid. Play it, Sam. Play as time goes by. And that's my father's cue. On my sister's back porch in a small suburb in northern Ohio, my father sings, his heart failing, his lungs catching each breath and holding it for a split second as if it's his last. He sings about moonlight and hearts full of passion, jealousy and hate, fighting for love and glory. As time goes by, as time goes by, as time goes by, as his life becomes a movie and the background music becomes his personal score, all hushed before the scene fades to black, the song fades to silence.
Oh, beautiful. Let me hope that's yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're wonderful. Okay, now another first prize winner is Carolyn Russell, Jersey City, New Jersey, and her poem is called An Ode to Mildred. Carolyn Russell. And before I forget to give you your certificate, I'm going to give it to you right now.
Thank you. This is my first time entering anything like this or performing or anything, so very excited to share my poem called An Ode to Mildred. People may call her a clunker, a beater, a hunk of junk, geriatric, and, if feeling especially cruel, a death trap. Her most technologically advanced feature is a cassette player, and her heated seats only have two settings, burn your ass off or doesn't work at all. But they simply don't understand how she works. They don't know they have to hit the unlock button 7 times, not 6, not 10, 7. Or, if her blinkers stop working, simply press the hazard button on and off in quick succession. I don't see her faults or her quirks, though. Instead, I see my grandma driving my sisters and I from getting ice cream, even though it's before dinner time, and we can get in trouble if our parents found out. I'm the middle child, so that's the spot where I also sit. Smushed in between my sisters, we frantically lick the dripping chocolate ice cream. Even back then, her AC was finicky. My grandma glances in the rearview mirror, a smile tugging on her lips. We neglect to wipe the chocolate from our chins. We'll be found out. But we know you'll protect us. You always do. Grandparents have a way of spoiling their grandchildren with little consequence. It's their superpower. I see you driving me to Cape Cod to eat greasy fried clams with the belly still attached. Or, much to my dislike, to church, where I doodle on the donation envelopes, much to my mother's dislike. I see the road trips I've taken with me now in the driver's seat, journeys to college in the slush, my used textbooks scattered across the back seats, where the younger version of me once sat, licking the last of the ice cream from her knuckles. It was on these road trips where I named her Mildred. And when people ask why I chose such a name, I simply shrugged my shoulders. It felt right, I replied, though I secretly think you somehow had a role in choosing it too. You're with me at all times when I take my journeys. You were there when I drove my art supplies back and forth across campus so I could complete my thesis. You were there when I took the wrong exit and through snowstorms, unbearable heat, and torrential downpours. You were there for midnight trips to McDonald's when I couldn't handle anything anymore. You were there for my first job, when I was too afraid to go inside, so I just sat there, collecting myself for a few moments until my hands stopped trembling. It was during those times I smelled the salt of the ocean, the sugar from the freshly made waffle cones, the incense from church. As though you were reminding me you were always there, and you were proud for all that I've done. But most importantly, reminding me that it's okay if I'm not where I want to be yet. The fact that I'm trying is good enough in your eyes. Mildred may be a death trap, but she's also so full of life. The creases in her seats map out a story only I can decipher. The scratches and dings on her doors are tales only I can recreate. So here's to all of the clunkers out there, to all of the junk cars, to every jalopy and rust bucket. Only we know the true treasures we possess.
Wonderful. Wonderful, honey. And next, we have the second prize winner, Lorraine Conlin from Wantagh, New York. First D, Lorraine Conlin.
So excited.
Thank you, honey.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank you because of your workshops and your influence, this is my second time here. So I'm nervous. Can't believe it. Even though I print in 20 geriatric to read, I still need my glasses because I'm old. This is a true story, and it's a memory poem. It's called First Date. My first date was with a Sicilian guy named Salvatore, who I met at a Friday night dance. He asked me to dance and waltzed me into his arms. When he pressed his head against mine, I worried he would ruin my bouffant hairdo that took me hours to tease and a half a can of hairspray to make sure it would last the night. He was a hot-blooded Catholic schoolboy. I felt his moist cheek press against mine and his temple sticking to my hair, which he had to peel away when the song ended. I thought it would turn him off, but he stayed. We chatted, and he asked me out. I told him I needed permission from my dad and thought surely it would be the last I would see of Sal. but he said he would wait for my answer until the following week at the dance. There were conditions to my dating I thought no guy would ever agree to. You have to be home at 9 or I'll call the boy's parents, Dad said. And the information he would insist be written on an index card when the boy would pick me up. Sal said okay when I told him the conditions, and we set the date. Sunday afternoon, he met Dad and filled out the card. Sal watched him place it next to our phone. 2 long bus rides and 1 subway later, I worried how I would get back home if Sal left me in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium at a football game. I knew little about the Bronx and less about football or any sport because neither Dad nor my brothers played or enjoyed them. Sal tried to explain the game, but I just shook my head and smiled until halftime when he went to get us something to eat and left me alone in the cramped bleacher seats. I panicked and thought he wasn't coming back. I was sure it was something I said or didn't say. It began to drizzle, and my hair started to wilt, and tears streaked my cheeks with black mascara. When the crowd began to cheer, I looked up and saw Sal smiling, juggling 2 hot dogs, Cokes, and a handful of napkins. He gave me a few so I could wipe my face and blot my eyes. We held hands on the journey back to my house. When Dad answered the door, he shook Sal's hand and thanked him for getting me back on time. He said he would keep the index card on file for the next time. Thank you, Maria.
Wonderful. Our third place winner is Marcia LeBeau, and she's from South Orange, New Jersey, and her poem is called Toward the River. Congratulations, honey.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. This is my first time. Toward the river. I never understood why my mother let me leave the house with him. Maybe she was high off the frosting from the cake they had just shared for a joint birthday. Maybe because he was in med school and bound to take an oath that promised do no harm. Maybe because his car was old and corroded and he wasn't a dude, just a family friend living back home with his parents and 6 siblings. I could have been a little sister. And possibly his mustache made him seem older than the decade between us. The pulse bristling between us so faint. How could she have imagined him turning right down the hill toward the river after we backed out of the driveway? The dark water churning, invisible until we reached the boat slip parking lot. The lot my family never turned into because we weren't boat or fishing people. Yet there I was, on the bench seat, circling the empty lot, trying to understand what he meant when he asked if this was the place people parked. In the daylight, I thought. I was wearing my mother's white rubber raincoat. It fit tightly over my mint green sweatshirt. What is this thing? He asked when he urged the coat down. The heat blew as steam crept up the windshield. He slid over and stretched his arm around my shoulder. I sat up straighter. He asked why I wasn't looking at him. As I turned, his tongue diving into my mouth, the scrape of steel wool on my lip. I had done this before, but only with boys who had smooth faces and sweaty palms in basement closets, not cars with grown-ups. I have a boyfriend, I breathed as I inched away. I think he laughed, my mind blank and racing. I need to get home, I squeaked, softer than the rubber raincoat. My mom will worry, I said, knowing that she would not. I tried to peel the raincoat back on, but it was smaller than the sweatshirt, so I stopped, wondered how I had gotten into it in the first place. I listened to the wet tires turn as he drove the car up the hill. over the canal where I would park with my first real boyfriend a year later. But I didn't know that. All I knew was my mother's voice full of rosé when I entered the kitchen. "Did you have a nice drive?" I don't blame her. I rarely have. Her generation didn't question men, never daydreamed their dark corners. The way she used to come in and click off my nightlight when I had fallen asleep, to save electricity, to save us from seeing what was there in case we woke up.
Oh, wonderful. Beautiful poem. And next honorable mention, we have Harold Berelson, who comes from Teaneck, and his poem is called Secondhand Store.
I remember when she wore a beret and took her paintings into the West Village Outdoor Art Show, and perhaps for the first time had some of her earlier aspirations realized. I thought how she tried to put together her dreams that were lost or put aside when she raised us. She sold a few paintings to passers-by, some of her thickly applied ocean waves in blues, greens, and frothy whites upon burnt umber, rocks and jetties. This is where I grew up, by the ocean, where I couldn't wait to get away from her aspirations, away from her desperate attempts to free herself. Perhaps the movement of ocean waves was enough to transport her away from her everyday struggles. But I imagine just being next to other artists was something of an accomplishment. It was in her eyes, knowing that a few people had bought some of her attempts. When she died, I gave some of her paintings to her friends and took some of them home. I had chosen a few of the worst flower paintings that I had ever seen to remind me of the child still trapped within her, desperately trying to get out. But I kept one wonderfully executed seascape, the paint slathered on with expertise and conviction to remind me of how she might have identified with the movement and strength of the water, the movement away from her past and into her dream. I have kept these paintings for all of these years. I don't know if I will keep them any longer. I have enough memories. Perhaps I will place them in a second-hand store for a second chance to be seen.
Now, next honorable mention is Cherry Bonhurst, a Black Horse from Hamden, what's wrong with my mouth? Hamden, Connecticut, my grandfather's fedora. Is Terry here? No? No? Okay. And then Eric Childs from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Okay. Eric and the poem is called Wiggy. And I'm wigging out because I can't get a word out of my mouth.
You're doing fine.
Thank you, dear. You're very nice. Take your
Okay.
because my hands are not working either.
And I'm a rookie too.
You're a rookie. Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind
This
of
is your first time.
yes, and it's kind of refreshing. It gives you the illusion. I want to thank you for the illusion of being maybe a little younger. So this poem's entitled Wiggy, and need to give you a little bit of an explanation. Wiggy's full name was Sinclair Wiggins Childs, and we called him Wiggy or Wig because his father was Sinclair also, and he was Uncle Sinny. So this is Wiggy. The last time we talked, he wanted me to take a stack of fly fishing magazines. It was one among many purposefully piled in his living room. National Geographics, Golf Digests, Wall Street journals, each a pier of obligation arranged like obelisks, whose hieroglyphs he must one day decipher. He found my offer to recycle them appalling. What? You're a journalist. How could you toss all that information? He was an older cousin who'd pop in and out of our lives to remind us of some curious bit of family history. A bachelor who occupied his parents' memory-filled house. Occupied, not lived there. He might not have been married, but he stayed with another cousin's widow. He didn't want the rest of the family to know he was living in sin. The sin was we didn't know him better. One day his companion called to say she found him collapsed among the stacks, lifeless as yellow pages. Weeks later, we sorted through boxes of his black and white family photos from decades past. There's Aunt Ruth, Uncle Ted. Where's this? Who's that? He had always been the compass road of our family map, the pointer to things ancestral, where secrets hid. As apparitions multiplied, we slowly grasped how lost we were in losing him. Thank you.
Wonderful. Next honorable mention is James Gwynn, and Jim lives in Clifton, and his poem is Last to Go. Congratulations.
There we go. I missed the lectern.
You missed the lecture?
I missed the lectern. You know, I speak better when I'm standing up. But anyway, I want to apologize also that I'm not in good voice today. Not in good seeing either. That's just the way it goes. But something about the poem, you know, like so many people and places in our lives, this poem was a dream of somewhere like the song that went long ago and far away. It's called Last to Go. Her apron hung on the back of the kitchen chair, its fabric still stiff from the smear of kitchen fat that caught a plume of flour wafting up when she rolled her pastry. There was a daub of orange jelly at the waist and a tomatoey splash staining the apron's right pocket where a small seed was encrusted. At the bottom, a brown color, which was no doubt coffee, where she must have patted her mouth dry. Through planting and growing months, the fabric took on the fecund richness of the soil, and canning season added a technicolor sheen. Rubbed into the cotton was a grayness from coal dust that clung to her when she scuttled full her griddle stove. That color in the cloth deepened when she carried the ash outside to fill in the tire-sized ruts in the drive. What faded during the washing over the years was the cross-stitching of flowers on the left pocket and the cornucopia on the right. Under the flowers were the cursive letters, a touch of beauty. Under the cornucopia was a pinch of love. Here it was, hanging on the chair where she left it after she herself faded to a portion of her former self. I picked it up and sat in her chair, holding her cloth of many colors as the dining table was disassembled and moved out, the fridge unplugged and defrosted, cabinets in the pantry fully emptied. Cushions from the living room were thrown onto the porch to lighten the removal of the couch. The fake velvet-covered chair with several springs poking through the bottom was taken away as was the upright piano with its scramble of mice under the soundboard. The movers tromped in and out, disassembling the upstairs iron beds and squeezing the pieces down the narrow stairs. Pictures were unhung and distributed among family. Overflowing flower vases were emptied, given away, or discarded. Near day's end, the oil lamps she always kept in case the electricity failed were taken outside and emptied, their braces unscrewed from the wall. At last, alone, but not yet alone, I pushed up from the chair and looked at my hands holding the rumpled cloth. I draped it over the backrest and walked out. I wouldn't know what to do with it. Thank you.
Our next honorable mention is Josh Humphrey from Kearney, New Jersey. Uncle Sam, Sal, and the Wisdom of Photographs. Thank you, Josh.
This is about 80% true, which is pretty good for me. Uncle Sal and the Wisdom of Photographs. At some between time when Grandma Ritchie knew she was dying and was part at peace, she was like a second kid. She went to Atlantic City to see what was still there, the Mafia Hotel, the Frank Sinatra toilet. She found this giant Cadillac, candy-colored convertible. She insisted on posing in front of it with a wispy scarf around her neck to give life to the wind, like a lady pilot, our own lost and fiery Amelia Earhart. She said she wanted the wisdom of photographs, like Uncle Sal, forever caught in that New Year's liquor store, with bottles shining around him and eyes that hold all the questions and answers that ever were. No one argued with Grandma Ritchie, even before her between time. If she wanted lunch cake, if she wanted to drive without seeing an inch of the road, or steal all the silverware and plates after breakfast. Soon after she was gone with her great smiling husband and son who never made it to 12. But she was right, of course, about that picture. She is still in that borrowed Cadillac on Cousin Melissa's wall, sun and boardwalk over her shoulder, and an expression it took her a lifetime to build right, made of her days, her loves and loss fighting for space in her lines, the bakeries and undertakers, strawberries and lonely rooms. She is still ready for a blessing or a curse, almost smiles steady through all the worlds, deciding still whether or not they were worth it.
Wonderful job. And our next honorable mention is Diane Corey from Cresco, New Jersey. And it's a story heard at a college reunion. That's the title of the poem. Here you are, sweetheart. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. A story heard at a college reunion. The times they are changing. Bob Dylan. For SWMD, who lived this. Miss Jones, the old professor, is proud of her fancy girls' school, admires the rich girls she has mentored in her 50 years spent among such elite. And now this colored girl, this black-skinned upstart with the big hair, is allowed into this sacred institution by God knows who. This girl who expects to become a doctor who thinks she is smart, thinks she can be whatever she chooses. And this girl asks Miss Jones for a precious letter so she can go to medical school. What is this world coming to? No, Miss Jones will not write a recommendation, not for this girl who is not medical material. This girl with the same last name as Miss Jones. Why, Miss Jones's people probably owned the people who produced this girl. Yet here she is in this school, and now she is graduating, walking away from the podium, staring hard at Miss Jones and carrying her pride and her diploma, marching off to become the physician she believes she is meant to be, without help from old Miss Jones, whose world is changing, and there is not a damn thing Miss Jones can do about it. Yeah. And an aside here, I'm pleased to let you know that this young woman has had a decades-long career as an ophthalmologist.
Wonderful.
She's been a success.
Our next honorable mention winner is Julian Koslow from Fairlawn, New Jersey. Just another drop in the ocean of forgetting. Julian Koslow.
Thank you very much.
Oh, careful, please don't fall. I've had enough of falls myself.
Just adding a little extra drama, it's okay. All right. The first, the title is also the first line of the poem. So, just another drop in the ocean of forgetting. The fact you couldn't recall today. The word that wasn't right at the tip of your tongue. Gone without saying so much as so long. That thing you meant to remind yourself to do. An unmatched sock in the laundry pile of good intentions. Perhaps it was something important. Now, who knows? Nothing new, of course. What with all the rest? Teachers, classmates, and passwords, famous quotations, former addresses, and helpful advice. Old passions, old hates, reasons for and against, the plots of all those terrible movies you stayed up late to watch, a grand resolution made beneath a sapphire blue sky in lonesome winter twilight. The names your grandmother put in your keeping as she showed you photo after photo of long lost, long ago people. All this from a single empty box in the archive of vanishings. The hammy tour guide stretches out his arms and says, imagine, if you will, the great city that stood here once, its walls and palaces and temples, now they were only shifting sands fading to desert immemorial. He encourages you to take up a handful, which you do. And as you watch the grain slip through your fingers, you think of things you talked about, walking home from school with Chris in 4th grade. You remember still her last name, Lightfoot, like the tickle of soda, hearing it, thinking of it, the bright sun crackling in her hair, the fizz of walking along together, stepping as one over the cracks in the sidewalk. You kept this feeling to yourself, hoarded it, the last red lifesaver. And when she moved away, you thought, I won't forget, not even when I'm 100 years old. I won't forget, I won't forget, I won't.
Our next honorable mention winner is Barbara Krasner from Somerset, New Jersey, and her poem is Milk and Honey Flows at 65 Beacon Street, Newark, New Jersey. I love the title.
Milk and honey flow at 65 Boston Street, Newark, 1910. Peeling paint like ocean white caps, Bessie's pleated dress hanging from a pipe, natural light from shadeless window bruises the faded carpet your first American treasure. Heaps of dresses overwhelm an ironing board. Blue and white gingham, navy polka dot, turquoise swirls in tenement blues, reminders of squalor, hunger, need to eke out landlord's pay. Exposure lurks everywhere. The street, next flat, seams of neat shirt waists worn by immigrants trying to dress American. You all swagger to the photographer's studio, eager to show Deborah back home your new American silhouettes against tables, chairs, plants, and wall coverings that have never seen a tenement. You immigrants know you can fool your cousins. You know you can say, I'm here and I've made it, just as your brother Chaim Bear told you, great-grandma Bryna. Newly arrived grandchildren grasp in horror at the tenement soot and narrow spaces. The shack back home in Russia, at least it was theirs, as were the chickens at back for eggs and a good Shabbos meal. They didn't know from carpets or paint. They barely knew blue, because the shtetl only comes in shades of gray. Together now, you all cry the tenement blues over a game of cards on the rickety table found on the street. You cover it with oilcloth and congratulate yourselves on your thrift and ingenuity.
I love it, honey. Thank you. Our next honorable mention winner is Maria Lasella from Long Island City, New York, even though I know what is food for me. Maria, you're here, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
You lost the poem.
I did. This is so crazy. Okay, but you know what? I think I brought the wrong thing. This is terrible. This is really. Oh no, I did. Of course I did.
Don't worry, honey, it happens to the best of us.
Oh my God. And I'm gonna move this so that I don't fall off the side of it.
Yeah, don't.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, honey.
Oh, and then I just moved it back, so I could fall off. Even though I know what is good for me, I stay. Rooted, she lives on the same street in the same 4-bedroom house, too large for any of us anymore. The canopy of our lives once sheltered the magnolia tree until a cold snap shriveled its buds. The dogwood fell in a storm. Her family now scattered across the great divide of caregivers and well-meaning occasional visitors. I stay to witness her stare into the chipped and flaking ceiling, to demand more food and rice pudding, to ask again where I live. If I am her daughter, if I understand, I must still obey her. The seesaw of power never wavers. I stay to eavesdrop on her conversations with the dead that never cease with seasons or decades. I stay and do not interrupt, to witness the glissade of life to death in small slides, the rasp and hiss for air, more audible each week, the shorter sentences diminishing curiosity, the voracious appetite that belies her intentions. I stay to feed her, to learn the dance of the living simmer down to the mincing steps in a wedding hall of relatives she misses, to trace her affections to those lost, found, vanished, but still whispering in her ear. I stay to ask who she is communing with, even when she no longer calls me by my name. I stay to flip pages of dog-eared photo albums to help her recognize the living, the visitors. Decisions made before my feet ever touch the earth, pockmarked with expectations of one girl child for another. I stay because beyond the carefully tended rose garden crowding a postage stamp square of earth, Gardenias jam the glassed-in porch. Jasmine climbs the window frames, whisking the aroma of Calabria into a queen's home on the edge of an urban park. I stay to honor that tacit covenant made to my mother, her mother before her, my father, his father before him. Thank you.
Wonderful, darling.
Thank you.
Don't worry about it. Our next honorable mention winner is Mary Makovsky, Warwick, New York, and the poem is called Heavy Hands. Thank you, congratulations.
Heavy hands. My mother gave them the name that stuck, speckled as trout and quick to dart from currents of his anger. Broken by work, bruised in the ring, those square palms and thick fingers were not large. Their weight derived from having held so much. Hods of wet plaster, attention in a union hall. In 2 cities, buildings and contracts were lined with the walls he had made. They were not proud in the way of some men's hands. I have seen them wash plates and spoons, wield a vacuum, test the ripeness of peaches in a market, hang laundry, one shirt linked to another, saving pins. He could mend nothing, but could coax orange and lemon blossoms from dried seeds, charm dark-leaved trees from the oily pits of avocados. Yet when her eyes began to fail, he could not master the delicate motion of threading a needle, and even reaching out in love, he wounded. My mother often wore the print of his attention on her arm or shoulder. A cast to mend a bone had made him learn to draw or catch a ball or sign his name with either hand. There was no getting on the better side of him. The palm of right or left striking a cheek the same. How often those hands drove his views into our dining table, fists hammering opposition out of sight. Fists soon transformed by time, a drowning man's white-knuckled grip. Even when he lost his strength, when the veins rose up and strained against the skin, I could not hold my father's heavy hands. Though I remembered lying on the couch, my feet on his knees as he pressed strong fingers against my heel and arch, easing the pain of feet that ached from days at work, earning my route away from him.
Next is John H. McDermott Jr. from Cranford, New Jersey, Mending All. John H. McDermott Jr.
Maria, thank you for so much you do.
Thank you, dear.
Mending all. We made, we mended, we made it last. A patch behind the hole where the button pulled off. Patches inside the jeans or brown corduroys so they barely showed. Sports coats my mother sewed. Home-knitted scarves and gloves, socks I darned over the glass egg my mother lent me, and so many toys and whatnots that I glued or nailed together and then back together in the world before all was replaceable. Not saying it was better, just different. Later, changing oil and setting spark plugs went with setting the timing and adjusting carburetor, normal before computers ran all. Resoling my school shoes, full soles once, half soles twice if I didn't grow too much. School pants cuffed the first year and cuffs brought down the next. You could barely see the fold. And we weren't poor. It's just how it was. We were careful. Nanny and Mom making soap from bacon fat they'd saved, sauerkraut lining the attic hallway near clothes from 30 years ago, saved in case they ever came back. A time of gloves on Sunday and pillbox hats, some with veils, for special times I didn't understand. More formal times, more careful times, with depression memories much closer in 2 of 3 generations. Thank you.
And our next honorable mention winner is Lynne McNary. I hope I said that correctly. Morristown, New Jersey, drinking variations. Lynne, are you here? I don't know what she looks like. I sort of vaguely remember the name, but I have no idea who she is. Okay, next, Greg Molia. Oh, here he is. Greg Molia from Hopwood, New York. And it's The Woman in Me. Be careful, honey.
Thank you. Thank you. 3 thank yous. Okay. Whoops. Can't see it. The Woman in Me. A history filled with men. Grandpa, father, my department chair Viti, all male, and in the background these others that filled the scene but did not count. How could they count? They had a different biology. Mother, Aunt Lou, Mrs. Dietrich, my English teacher. No, I am what men made me. The women, they get angry. Some yell, some cry. No, not me. And yet, those that filled the scene with words you did not use, those others somehow present. Mrs. Dietrich in her class of star students, throwing out unanswered questions. And this one student, me, who rarely spoke, answered, not once, not twice, but 3 times in the same class, as if I knew her life outside of school. The B student me in the back seat. The me that mother began to seem so smart when she told me she knew when I fell in love, or from my look, that the Yankees had lost. These days, my love pokes fun as I finish reading, as I write into tears. I'm embarrassed. I fight it. Must not give in. Must be bold. Must be tough. Must fight that side of me that wants, that needs to cry.
Wonderful, bravo. And our next honorable mention person is Lisa Cole Nicolau from Fair Lawn, New Jersey, and her poem is Sisters in Time and Space. Let's welcome Lisa Nicolau. It makes me happy just seeing her.
And I'm happy to be here among new friends and old friends, among this beautiful artwork and hearing these poems. This title, Sisters in Time and Space, was the prompt from one of Maria's classes, and it's actually the title of one of Linda Hilleringhouse's beautiful pieces of art that I actually bought for my daughter. So just, and it also is on the cover of PLR, I think last year, yes. Sisters in Time and Space. Last night, my daughters and I crawled into the lumpy double bed of our beach rental house, and within a few minutes, our words make us take flight. We began with childhood stories and suddenly sped up, like in those exhilarating seconds when a plane is about to take off, and we started to talk of weddings. A boyfriend visited us for 3 days in this small shore house, and somehow our tight circle opened up enough to let him in. One evening, the 5 of us went to the arcade, rode the Ferris wheel, and played carnival games, forgetting the world for a few hours. Soon, I will pack up our chairs and tattered towels, return to the routine and the news, each day scarier than the one before. But a part of me will remain on that bed, whispering late into the night with my daughters, making plans that may happen here or maybe in another faraway galaxy.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Congratulations. And our next honorable mention poet is Marion Paganello, and also from Fair Lawn, New Jersey, and it's entitled You. Congratulations, honey.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you all. This is quite a gathering. It's great. Just beautiful poems. Thank you all. Okay, this is called You. Before you died, during the worst of it, all we could do was call you on your cell phone or visit you through the window, speaking eye to eye, palm to palm through the glass. After you died, I thought about our whole lives together as sisters and how much we shared, sometimes in friction, like 2 ribbons pulled taut, other times in a loving grace, encircling one another in an easy knot. You, who could be such a pain in the ass. You, who could be so kind and so funny. You, who so loved your 2 children. You, who could laugh as freely and deeply as any full-throated songbird. Before you died, you asked me to keep track of some things for you. I want you to know that your ticket stubs to Woodstock will be in safekeeping with your daughter. One day, she will give them to her daughter, part of your legacy to tell her that you were adventurous and cool. After you died, I tried to honor your before, your beauty, your wit, your wisdom, to declare that you were ever a fierce and unflagging mother, and that you meant more to us than any words could ever convey. Before you died, through all of your challenges, we had this thing, you and I, like a comfort code, where I would say to you, Lizzie, remember your patch of blue. That patch of blue sky as blue as your eyes. Do you see it? And you would say, yes. Yes, I see it. Thank you.
Next is Jason Craig Poole from South Orange, New Jersey, and the title of the poem is Broken. Congratulations, sweetheart.
It's an honor to be here with you all today. Broken. I couldn't get up from the floor. Only moments before, I was safe in the loft bed we'd constructed in our tiny Lower East Side apartment. Double the floor space, who cares if we bang our heads on the ceiling? I needed to pee. I'd swung my legs over the side to find a ladder, and wham. Cold air cycloned around me. A sisal rug tore at my palms when I tried to raise myself up. Damn, it's cold. Damn, my whole body hurts. Damn, I can't get up. No snapping of the breaking bone, just a thud, my body, and a moan, my voice. 28 years old, stone cold sober, stuck on the floor. My partner jumped down from the loft and stayed at my side. Let's call an ambulance. Nah, they'll wake up the whole building with their siren. I kept blacking out. He thought I was sleeping. He thought I would be fine, or I thought I would be fine if I could have one more minute to pull myself together. Stupid middle of the night mind. He called dial a nurse. Call an ambulance now. Siren shrieked and red light pulsed on our beige walls. An orange chair to carry me out because the stairway was too narrow for the stretcher. You need to roll over onto your sore hip so we can do this. I bit my lip and did as I was told. The room went white. I woke up inside the ambulance, strapped to a stretcher. At the hospital, they cut off my clothes. The x-ray technician looked past my nakedness and took pictures of my bones through my skin. You broke your hip? I'm not supposed to say that. You're supposed to hear that from a doctor. But it's broken. I couldn't believe it. Even after the orthopedist confirmed my fear, even after he scheduled my surgery, a non-believer still as they shot my body through with morphine, liquid fire in my veins that refused to take away the pain. Thank you.
Next we have Jennifer Poteet from Montclair, New Jersey, and her poem is Agnes. Is Jennifer here? No? Okay. Maud Caroline Pitch, Totawaburo, Sunflower Poem number 16.
Thank you, Maria.
All right, hold on a minute. I have to get used to this Jillian. I don't seem to be doing a very good job of, since my hands are not working correctly. Here. Thanks, honey. Morphine, anybody?
Sunflower Poem number 16. I'm looking at a giant gold-frilled sunflower in a vase on my dining room table, and I'm smiling. Let me tell you how it got there. A few days ago, I drove past a fanciful sunflower garden boasting tall stalks and glorious blooms, leaning majestically against the front of a house on Boyle Avenue in Totowa. So this morning, I stapled together a booklet of 15 sunflower poems I've written over the years, then drove to the house and rang the doorbell. When a man came to the door, I quickly told him, I'm not selling anything. I just love your sunflowers and brought you a present of sunflower poems. The man was definitely startled and thoroughly delighted. He accepted the gift, then asked if I would like to have one of his sunflowers. His offer surprised me. I said yes. As he went inside to get clippers, his wife came out. She told me they plant sunflowers every summer to help save the bees that busily buzz around the blooms. I told her I've often considered planting a milkweed patch to save the monarch butterflies, but have never actually done it, maybe next summer. When her husband returned, we introduced ourselves. They are John and Roseanne Butler. John asked me to select which sunflower I wanted, then carefully cut the thick, woody stalk. I brought the beauty home, placed it in a sturdy vase, and am enjoying its dazzling presence in the center of my table. And now that I've told my story, I will put the pen down on this, the 16th poem in my ever-growing sunflower poetry collection.
And our next honorable mention is Robert Rosenblum from Bound Brook, New Jersey, and it's A Kid's Saturday Night. Robert Rosenblum. Thank you, honey. Congratulations.
Well, 1 second, let me spike. You can sit down. I just want to spike the chair because it's moving back after each person sits.
You can sit, honey. Don't fall down like me. You might go backwards.
Please. Don't scare me like that. For those who are coming up shortly, take your time, relax, sit down in a chair, play it, because I don't want you going that way. Be part of it.
Okay, Robert Rosenblum.
The poem is, this right? The poem is A Kid's Saturday Night. It's a nostalgia poem, and I was trying to aim for the 50s, not the 60s.
Louder, honey.
Oh,
Fix the mic.
Oh, what I do?
No, put it. It's on, but you need to speak into it, and you need to be a little louder. Yell.
A Kid's Saturday Night.
Excellent.
We had Perry Mason books in the break front and Perry Mason knockoffs. I'm not sure what my parents were doing with War and Peace. Someone must have thought it made someone in the house look cultured. We had toy Torah scrolls from bar mitzvah cakes up there with the great Tolstoy. My mother kept fine silverware wrapped in linen, which got shoved into drawers. I especially liked when my mother davened against the break front, as if this were the ark where the real Torahs were kept. My mother lit Friday night candles, which was pretty interesting since she waved her hands over the lit candles as if she were calling in the small waves at Coney Island. Come, children, let's go home. The D train is waiting. I don't remember her lighting candles too much when I was younger. She seemed to pick that up as a ritual from a long ago world, the secret lives of Jews. There were the phylacteries stuffed into drawers, tefillin I received from my bar mitzvah. I am a Jew, leather straps which were to be wrapped around my arms, and the black box with the folded up prayers, like fortune cookies and their messages. God is good. I received a yellow basketball, like the sun, which I destroyed when I overinflated it at Irwin's Flying A gas station on the corner. It would bounce only up to my knees for the rest of its life. Sports was the American boyhood we all coveted, some of us better at it than others. I was better than average, but that's about as far as it went, except maybe swimming. I was in love with water sports. That might explain the popularity of a show like Sea Hunt with Lloyd Bridges, apparently a blacklisted Hollywood communist for a time. Who wouldn't want to strap on those oxygen tanks and take a dive down 45 feet to catch some crooks and arsonists? I bought the comic books which tracked the series and took the latest copy with me to my friend Milton Schneider's house on a spring Saturday. He had no idea I'd be coming over. The show aired 10:30 Saturday nights after Gunsmoke and Steve Canyon. Who didn't like James Arness, Chester Good, Kitty and Doc? What all-American boy wasn't in love with racy Amanda Blake? Was that a hotel and bar or a brothel? And was there any there between Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty?
Next is Margaret Sirocco from Montclair, New Jersey. Anguish. Margaret. Congratulations, sweetheart. Wait a minute, take that. My hands are misfunctioning.
Oops. Yeah, you're good. You're good, John. Well, thank you, Maria. It's always a pleasure to be here to hear all this wonderful work, and thank you so much for everything you do. Anguish. Sunday morning after church, I run to my Aunt Mary's house across the street. My mother is at home cooking supper, believes religion is found in kitchens with family, not in houses of worship, while my teenage sister sleeps. I am 7 and crave time spent with my dad and visiting my aunt. My stomach growls as I peer into the pot on her stove. Tender, juicy beef and pork chunks bob and simmer in savory gravy with an oily sheen as meat falls from the bone. Bubbles pop to the surface, sweetly drip dotting the porcelain counter with red residue. My aunt tears off a piece of Italian bread fresh from Gembruno's brick ovens down the street and hands it to me. The bakery only makes 2 kinds, Italian and Italian with sesame seeds. Every Sunday, priests admonish parishioners for leaving church early to be first in line. Take it, Aunt Mary says, spooning the gravy into a bowl. She stands near me absent-mindedly, combing her fingers through my hair. Daily, she tends to her teenage children and my grandparents, elderly but not old, who live with her. My feet dangle, my legs stick to the green vinyl chair while I devour the delectable chunks. Poppy, their dog, circles my legs, nipping at my black patent leather shoes while I eat. Simmering espresso is for Dad, who squeezes a lemon rind into the cup, adding a shot of Sambuca and drinks the hot liquid in 2 gulps. I notice his eyes look sad, but smiling thanks her. This morning, as all Sunday mornings, sitting at the chrome and Formica kitchen table, I am not sure what is really going on beneath the offering of espresso and food. I don't understand the space between talk and silence, or see the black and blue bruises hidden beneath high necklines and long sleeve shirts. My uncle drinks too much liquor distilled in stained bathtubs or in secreted church shacks. He is a runaway truck, hurtling for their children, my grandparents, and my aunt, who blocks his path, absorbing the impact. She, married at 17, worked long hours in sweatshops, maybe to avoid going home. I wouldn't know. She never told me. I can only guess. In her 50s, she battled cancer, years of rage buried within a ravaged body, venom spilled from her as she lashed at her demon husband for years of abuse. Eventually yielding to the illness, the warrior goddess, with the last of her strength, barred him from her hospital room, now a weakened old man in his 60s. My childhood memories wrestle with the present as I return to the gravy, her gentle caresses, and the comfort of her embrace. Powerless to ease her pain, I didn't understand until close to her end. Years after her untimely and excruciating death, the memory of my aunt remains with me, bubbling to the surface, like the gravy I make on early Sunday mornings. Thank you so much.
The next honorable mention is Kenneth Silvestri and Nyack, New York, early Sunday mornings. Oh, we're getting a theme here. Thank you.
not enough fooling, right? No, I'm good. I've been doing Aikido and martial art for 35 years, and I have never defended myself on a chair, so I will. Thank you, Maria. Maria, you sure are a gem. You really are.
Thank you.
It's
So are
nice
you,
to be
darling.
here. And it's wonderful to be here with so many wonderful poets. Early Sunday mornings, when Patterson was still asleep, Michael and I would meet to get coffee, a Jewish roll, and butter, a springboard to choosing a section where he could photograph architectural gems, and there's a lot of them, while I wrote poems. A collaboration describing this beautiful, messy, gritty place brought to life in our eyes to what was in the 8-square-mile densely populated town with 500 plus bars, more than any other city per capita. Each legally mandated to have a lit grill that was seldom never used. One had mutton pies hanging from a metal basket until the Board of Health forbade them to do so. As a teen, I couldn't wait any longer to cross Union Ave from Netzer's Luncheonette Hangout to the Wagon Wheel Bar across the street until an FBI agent came to my house, took my false identity card with his jacket off, exposing his gun holster. He interrupted my study of the ambiance with those fascinating community contexts. We immersed ourselves in old neighborhoods, such as where McKinley came to meet Garrett Hobart, his vice president, right here in the Hamilton House. He met Garrett Hobart here, whose statue was always full of pigeon dung in front of City Hall, rumored to be because of his cruelty to the factory workers, as told by my friend archaeologist Ed Rutch, who was 6'5", 350 pounds, and would roast a whole pig for dinner on Ellison Street in his backyard. Before we would go next door to the amazing Question Mark Bar, where John Reed, Emma Goldman, and Bill Hayward met during the Wobbly strikes. Tommy Greco owned that bar. He grew up there. His bathroom had a large latrine that he filled with ice. He told us the stories that answered all the gaps of what we didn't know. As we explored old boxcars on railroad sidings, climbed the top of empty pie parking garages, took panoramic photos, and imagined what was. Thank you. Thank you.
Next is Sharida Yoder from North Haledon, New Jersey. Lessons. Sharida, I know I saw you before. Congratulations, honey.
Thank you, Maria. And thank you for everything, your own poetry, for supporting us poets, and for keeping poetry in Patterson.
Thank you, dear.
Poem is called Lessons. We had assemblies in grammar school, which meant on Wednesday, one day a week, we would sing together in our wooden seats, songs copied into our black speckled composition books. Mrs. Corman taught us hymns. Now blessed daylight fills the sky, we lift our hearts to God on high, that he in all we do or say will keep us safe from harm today. Ancient Miss Kehoe taught us songs from World War I. We're tenting tonight, and when Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah. We were in PS 25 in Patterson, New Jersey, and by 1959 we stopped having air raid drills. In assembly we learned, tell old Pharaoh, let my people go, and old Black Joe. Half our class was black, half white. All the girls wore dresses. Our teacher taught the 4th grade class Whispering Hope and Dona Nobis Pacem, just before assassinations tore us apart. when on the black and white TV, we watched black women in pretty skirts and heels and black men in neat slacks fall down under the force of fire hoses and try to get back up again. Police dogs snapping, but no teacher explained it. This was before we watched on TV Soldiers in a Jungle and heard the roar of choppers and machine guns, and the faces of young men appeared every day on the front page of our newspaper, having died in a war far away. On Wednesdays, we sang songs about times long past, our high children's voices echoing in the auditorium that held a flag, a picture of George Washington, and Mrs. Corman leading us, standing up on the stage and lifting up her hands.
Wonderful. Our next honorable mention is Eileen Van Cook from Wantagh, New Jersey, and her poem is called The Aunts.
It's the ants.
It's the ants. Not the aunts.
Thank you.
Okay, honey.
The aunts. That's for you. When I was 10, my aunts were young, except for Auntie Sis, my father's much older sister. She worked for an insurance agency, even though she had a son, which was unusual at the time. Auntie Sis took me to the Easter show at Radio City Music Hall and for lunch at the Automat. Every Thanksgiving, she gave my parents $50 towards their Christmas shopping. I thought she was a wealthy woman of the world. My other 3 aunts were my uncle's wives. They were close in age, very different, but had a common enemy. Aunt Margaret was the cutest, petite, with dark hair and eyes. She was rather quiet, intimidated by her mother-in-law, my grandmother. Aunt Margaret worked in a bank and failed to produce children, which was openly frowned upon by Grandma. Aunt Muriel was the life of the party, always smiling. I remember her in a red dress, managing to outdazzle even the Christmas tree. Grandma managed to find fault with her, even though she had 4 children that kept her busy and happy. She lived the longest, dying last year at the age of 95. I loved her very much and miss her the most. Aunt Helen was a Protestant, so my Catholic grandmother found it necessary to make her life miserable. Grandma refused to go to her son's wedding to this perfectly nice woman, and years later told her 3 kids that their mother would go to hell because she wasn't Catholic. All that negativity seemed to age Aunt Helen prematurely. I don't remember her as happy. This is a story about my aunts, but Grandma, as usual, has managed to worm her way into the narrative.
Wonderful. What a horrible woman. Let's welcome Zant Wintress, Montclair, New Jersey, and his poem is called Tartan. Congratulations, honey.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you. See this right there. Tartan. I stood next to my grandpa. She stood next to her daddy. We were in the kitchen, their kitchen, and it was sort of dark in there, I'm remembering now. It was a dank, drizzly day outside, and they'd obviously not adjusted their indoor lighting as most people would do on such a day. I don't know now, I didn't know then what the men talked about, but it was for a while, as my grandfather, when talking to other men, could talk for a while. But not so long a while this time that we ever sat down. While the men talked, we children were the unheard children we were expected to be in such a situation. The man was younger than my grandfather, but I guessed him to still be a bit older than my daddy. He was tall and still dressed in his Sunday best, a white shirt with a basic black or navy tie. My grandfather stood across from him as a much shorter man, but of course, to my 4-year-old self at the time, they were both tall men. Grandpa had on his overalls and work boots. As for me, there are many times that I can recall what I was wearing in certain situations, but not this time. I do remember that when Grandpa picked me up in his pickup truck, it was soon after church and I was already out of my Sunday best, but I have no memory of what I had changed into. She, however, the man's little girl, stood before me wearing a little red dress with a dark tartan print. Tartan is my word now. I would have never known to describe anything then as tartan. Her little dress was belted at the waist. If she wasn't my age of 4, she was at least of comparable height. Her straight, short brown hair hung right below her ears and curved under slightly. She stood there in black, shiny shoes that I now know to refer to as Mary Jane's. They matched the black, shiny belt she wore around her waist. I even remember the faux brick linoleum floor upon which we all stood in their kitchen. There was nothing for me to do but look at her. There was nothing for her to do but look at me. Again, no idea what the men talked about, most likely something farm or farm machine related, but the father-daughter, grandfather-grandson couplings and stances mirrored each other, except that she stood as close as she could stand to her daddy without actually clinging to his leg. She made no move to beckon me elsewhere so that we might play, but I remember thinking that she looked like she'd be a fun playmate. And that was that inside their house. When back outside, I ran down the gravel driveway to hop back in Grandpa's green pickup truck. Once we were both situated and Grandpa had buckled me in, I asked then what I'd not been given the chance to ask inside. What was the man's little girl's name? I wanted to know. What little girl? Grandpa asked of me. The man's little girl, his daughter. What was her name? I asked. What are you talking about? Where'd you see a little girl? He asked me. That man doesn't have a little girl. The irritation in his voice let me know not to ask anything else. The irritation in his voice, I remember irritating me. The irritation in his voice, I fear all these years later, did little to enhance our relationship. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Next, we have Editor's Choice winner Donald Emerson from Petaluma, California, and her poem is called Sarah May. Donna Emerson from Petaluma, California. Congratulations, honey. Thank you.
Well, everyone in California asked me, why are you going 3,000 miles to read one poem? And I said, you don't know Maria.
And what a wonderful reading it will be.
I'm going to read a poem about a woman that I met who became a friend when we were moving into our little cabin in Western New York. I spent half of my time in California and half of my time back here. This was home. I think Maria's rhymes with home. I met her at an Amish auction in Addison, New York, and we soon found ourselves talking about quilts because she was a quilter and I needed quilts for our little house. And she said she made quilts and she'd make quilts for me. So this is about her, Sarah May. She jumped up from her kitchen table when her husband whispered English. As he slowly led us into their boot room, I watched her dash to the larger bedroom, pull up the tattered blue coverlet over a pillow's edge, her own bed, low to the ground, shared with the quiet man, fringed chin man who let us in. She shushed her girls, 2 in cotton bonnets, hers in chiffon, ties hanging down. The girls swept their gray dresses to the next room, peered out at us from a half-closed door. I peeked at them as they glimpsed me. We walked across a dark, long-paneled floor. It could have been a dancing floor. No furniture in this room, just 4 hand-hewn rocking chairs, lined bare walls, and an old open Bible on a stand. I smiled into a soft kindness, Sarah May's face, as she lifted out the quilts. Half were Amish, deep colors against black ground. Half were the kind she imagined we'd like, white and lavender gingham, pale peony flowers, purples and blues. All sizes, colors, patterns, wedding ring and sunburst. I tried hard to just look at the quilts, but my eyes traveled to her sweet full mouth, her hushed children swinging around the door, holding its porcelain knob. Her treasure chest full of hand-sewn cloth, waiting for us. I wanted to say how much I've enjoyed the poems today. That's certainly another reason that I come. My grandmother's name was Mildred, and we sang hymns at school.
Our next editor's choice is Jean Fleming, and I also like to say happy birthday to Jean. Today is her birthday, so let's give him a round of applause. Jean comes from Warwick, New York, and her poem is called Clotheslines.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, honey. Happy birthday to you. I can't sing, but I would if I could.
You're the sweetest, most inspiring person. I love you, Maria.
Thank you.
We all love you. It's just been fabulous to be here. I can't imagine being anyplace else today. So this is called Clotheslines, and it's Clothes. Higher. Oh, thanks, Frank. I know I have such a big mouth, except when I get to read, right? Clotheslines. Oh. For some time, I've been drawn to laundry hanging on a line. A momentary pause, an inhale, calmness. To see it silent and still, slowly dripping wetness into the ground. Drop, drop, drop. Or the wild dance, pinned tight against the whipping wind. I've had the need to photograph it, wonder it. Nearby, the onion fields stretch over the black dirt, and each house seems to wave with denim, still a bit stained at the knees. In Brazil, most laundry is red, yellow, orange. a festive flapping in the hilly favelas in contrast to their lives. In Eastern Europe, in the yards behind the rosemary hedges, shades more dark, navy, black, brown, heavy, and inconspicuous. In South Africa, on the open settlements, clothes are lightweight and few, and double-S sheets, towels shelter in whatever last year's colors and fabrics were in the U.S. In Italy, my last good look at a line of laundry. It was in the Cinque Terre, while navigating a steep cobblestone street. I saw a handsome elderly man using a pulley system for hanging clothes from his terrace to the one across the way. I wondered if it was by mutual agreement. I wondered where his wife was. I started taking photographs as he was hanging his whites, socks, t-shirts, underwear. When he got to hanging bras, he looked down at me from his balcony, and his eyes told me to put my camera down, that I was intruding. Yes, I suppose I do. Thank you. Thank you, Maria.
Next editor's choice is Esther Harper from Maplewood, New Jersey. My first date at Sugar Reef.
Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too,
I've heard so
Don.
many things about you from my poetry teachers.
Good things, I hope.
Good. Wonderful things. Wonderful things. Thank you so much. It's a little intimidating to come after so many great poets, and this is my first one that's being published, so I'm really excited about it.
I love seeing the new faces mixed with the faces I know and love. So wonderful.
Yes. So this is a little bit of a different first date than the other first date. Oh, okay. Is this better?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. My first date at Sugar Reef. As we walked down the dark stairs inside the Jamaican restaurant, the scene came alive with a bustling bar covered in grass and straw. It was cozy. Drinks abounded with toys in them. The sense of jerk chicken and coconut shrimp hitting us as we descended. White paper lanterns working their magic across and around the ceiling. We sat down at our wooden small table while listening to the white noise chatter and the reggae system over the sound system. You stared at me, but never said a word. That led me to talk a lot, so much, and stare at you. Your wavy hair, your too tight suit, your shy warmth. I felt your knees touching mine. Finally, you spoke. How did you find this place? Responding, I talked yet again. I like exploring the East Village. This is my favorite spot. Did this have to end? No, it did not. I loved your kind listening, your strong hand reaching for mine often. Often. I knew then it was something 34 years later, now. Even if the restaurant is not there anymore, we still are.
That's wonderful. Okay, next editor's choice is Frank Nicoletti from West Orange, Pink Belly. This is for you, darling.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here, as is every one of us, and I will read a poem that followed from the seed that Maria drops weekly in her, by now, worldwide and famous Poetry for Mature Adults poetry series. And this poem, seated by Maria's great and inspiring ideas, was midwifed by my good friend Jim Gwynn, without whose editorial assistance I would be an utter failure. One last story. When I was leaving my home early this morning, I usually spend Saturdays with a group of marvelous kids in Newark, New Jersey. They're not all from Newark, but rather the greater Newark area. And of late, some children have been coming from as far as Patterson to attend our program, and I couldn't be more delighted. I live for it. In any case, at my window, or next to my window, there's another square window, and a new neighbor has moved in, and he's gotten to know me. But he spends his time always at this rear window, which happens to be the tiny square of his bathroom, where he sits all day long, smoking incessantly. Fortunately, he's very short, so that if he stands up, none of us is put off, so to speak. And he said to me, because we've only spoken a few times, and he said to me, so what are you delivering to the unsuspecting today? I said, I'm going to do pink belly. He goes, pork belly? I love pork belly. Don't let them all eat that. Bring some home to me. In any case, herewith is pink belly. Not
That's
pork
funny.
belly. An elfin creature with Popeye muscled, tattooed arms. He was something of a celebrity, that black sheep uncle of the unwashed kids whose parents rented rooms upstairs. And he'd just come back from the Navy, or so those kids had boasted. More like the brig, my sister said. Today, he was giving pink bellies, and the jerks on the block were lining up to be bent backward over the hood of the last tenant's old Packard, its tires long deflated at the curb where he had had his heart attack, cigarette burns deep in the dashboard of the abandoned wreck. I stayed at the curb. What's the matter, you chicken? The filthiest of the filthy tenant brothers said. Mama's boy, fraidy cat, too scared to get your belly pinked. I stepped up to the front of the line. The elf lifted me and bent me back, pulled up my striped polo shirt, and slapped to the rhythm of a dirty ditty without words. At dinner, my father said, "What? Cat got your tongue? And why is your shirt all crumpled?" my mother asked. "Christ's sakes, I just washed and ironed it. Supposed to last you for your cousin Louie's birthday." My big-mouthed sister, the all-seeing eyeball of the seedy neighborhood, watcher from the portal of the towered bedroom she hardly left, said, "Pink belly, the elf, give the kids pink belly all morning long." "Lift up your shirt," my father said.
Uh-oh.
"Honey, not at the table," my mother said. "Table my ass," my father yelled. "Let's see your gut." Timidly, slowly, I began to raise my shirt. "Up, goddammit," my father demanded, and I hoisted it. My mother's eyes went wide. My father jabbed his fork into the oilcloth spread upon the table. The blue willow dishes collected over countless movie nights downtown bounced as if an earthquake had struck the serene scenes of Japanese villages, life depicted on the plates. My father rose, gigantic, upsetting the soup tureen, toppling the cypresses of mythic Mount Fuji into shards upon the floor. "You're gonna get it now," my sister said, and laughed. "Both of you, out of here," my mother said. She bent to sop up the chicken broth, pale noodles swimming like eels to escape the storm swimming over our kitchen. Like a tsunami, my father whooshed past me and unhinged the storm door. From the room, I heard the muffled screams of torture and the fragments of my Marine vet father's blistering curses between blows. I'll give you pink belly, you dishonorable discharge, degenerate squid. And slam, thud, an elfin wail, then silence. My sister later said the sight wasn't pretty. An uncommon understatement from a kid who thrived on tales she made more lurid for a childhood landscape built on Hollywood screen catastrophes. Even now, I sometimes wake up to find my hand resting on the mount of my old man's belly and feel its warm skin rising high to the stinging behind my closed eyes. I see wet and shimmering shapes of fog shifting in unnatural shades of pink. What, I think, a lonely kid won't do to be a ranking member of even the most disreputable of gangs. Thank you.
Our last editor's choice is Seneca Turner from the Bronx, New York. Reflections at a time of pandemic, I believe. She here? Congratulations, honey.
I'd like to dedicate this reading, excuse me, to my brother who passed away February the 7th, 2021. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of my dear wife, Sister Sahira, as well as the presence of Brother Noah Jemison, a prominent painter in Manhattan, and my dear niece, Sister Caroline, herself a poet, and her daughter.
Wonderful.
Reflections in a time of pandemic. I believe in late winter sunsets, little girls jumping double dutch on Harlem sidewalks, and bars that open 8 o'clock in the morning. I believe in East African children splashing in melted snow at the foot of Kilimanjaro, and the way my mother giggled on her 80th birthday 3 weeks before she died. I believe in the sacred rhythms of the djembe and wild sunflowers growing high on vacant lots. I believe in the girl in St. Croix emulating Donna Summers that sang, "I work hard for my money, happy birthday." I believe in Judith Jameson dancing Revelations barefooted in a canary yellow summer dress, and camp meeting and a new idea. I believe in the deep chasms of what remains unsaid and trusting all of the details. I believe in the smell of gunpowder in autumn woods and Mississippi riverboard sounds. I believe in Sister Bertha Bingham whispering from the third row church pew, "Old age slip up on you." I believe in Margaret Walker reading for my people and the old lady on the A train offering to pray for those in need. I believe in that point where the blue and the white Nile meet and the truth in first light slicing across blue and black horizon. I believe in Venice Beach at 3 a.m. when Pacific Ocean foams reflect silver moon rays. I believe in the deep call to prayer from the mosque next door to Hotel St. Louis in Dakar. I believe in the cannon blaze ceremony in the hills of Bahia and the Sunday morning drummers in Versus Garber's Park in Harlem. I believe in the deep silence between the song and the last act.
Love that. That's wonderful, honey. That is so beautiful. Wasn't that beautiful? What a way to end. Hooray to you, honey. And a great name, Seneca. What a wonderful name.